to the special session 2 at the IEEE AFRICON 2021 conference. And we will be talking about sustainable broadband connectivity and digital entrepreneurship for Africa. So the program is between now and 2:30. I will start with presenting the paper that was submitted for AFRICON, and it was accepted. So it is a paper between us, UNDP, and University of Witwatersrand. And then William will continue with the practical side of deploying TV-wide-based systems. The keynote, we can say, for this session. Then we'll continue with the panel discussion. And I have my co-chair for the session, Clariska. Then we can start with introducing ourselves first. Clariska, would you start?
Sure. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Clariska Moti. I'm the head of experimentation at UNDP, and that's the United Nations Development Program. Good to meet you all.
Nati, you can.
Greeting, Visa. Thank you for hosting us. Let me also share my greeting to our panelists. I'm looking forward to this amazing session. My name is Natim.
Greeting,
Visa. Thank you for hosting us. Internet service provider. Let me also share my South Coast of KZN in South Africa. Greeting to our panelists.
Joyce, would you like to introduce yourself? Okay, we can go to William. Oh, okay, Joyce has come. Okay, come in, Joyce.
Okay, yes, hi. My name is Joyce. I'm Joyce Mangama from the University of Cape Town, a lecturer in the Department of Electrical Engineering. Yeah.
William, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm very honored. What I'd like to talk about today is a little bit about our experience in TV white space, but more generally, a new paradigm in a modular paradigm in deploying internet connectivity. And I look forward to doing that. Again, thank you for this opportunity. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good morning for you.
Absolutely.
And Fumile?
Good afternoon to all. I'm not sure if you can see me. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So my name is Pumi, but I go by the name Pumi, Kosigati Holdings, which is based in South Africa. So we have 3 wireless networks based in Mpumalanga, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal, all provinces in South Africa. So I'm very honored for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll wait for Mujumo to come in, Professor Muzaise, later on.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mujumo Muzaise. I'm with BITS Business School. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to this very exciting and interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you. So you all know that this is being live streamed. We start with my presentation first, and then we go to William's presentation, and then we start the panel discussion with all of us. So let me see where it is that thing. Can you see the slide?
Not yet. Now I can.
Okay, everyone can see it?
Yes. I can
Yes,
see
we
it.
can.
Thank you. So I'll put it on. Thank you very much. So this paper on affordable connectivity and entrepreneurial ecosystem for rural Africa is a result of collaboration between WITS Business School, CSIR, and the UNDP. As you see the names here, myself and Dr. Mufepe are from CSIR, and Professor Mzaise is University of Witwatersrand's Business School, and Dr. Odusola from UNDP, the regional representative from UNDP South Africa, now being represented by Clariska here. So the outline of the paper is like this, and I would go through as fast as I can, because we have only 15 minutes each for each presentation. And the main issue here is that we want to bring in affordable connectivity and digital entrepreneurship, plus, you know, a way for the rural SMMEs to grow their revenue and to grow their companies, to contribute to the economies of those rural areas. That is the only way for them to survive, in my opinion. And this is a project towards that. So then there is a whole lot of issues of what the future will hold, but we will see what we can support. And this is a collaboration project, and we would like to see that this SMMEs also grow. And I'm happy that one of the SMMEs involved in this project with UNDP is here. And he can comment on some of the ideas that we are bringing. So the CSIR has been working on innovative spectrum toolboxes for coexistence. The reason being that we have been working on spectrum innovation or spectrum research, engineering research, and we have identified several spectrum areas lying idle in the UHF band, which is utilized by television broadcasters. So what we said was, why can't we build toolboxes for coexistence so that we can also build broadband networks around those spectrum areas which have not been utilized. This is a prime spectrum area, so it could be used for long haul communication. It can penetrate through vegetation, and it has also, it does not need line of sight. So these are the areas why we wanted to utilize television wide space networks. So we designed an ecosystem involving the technologies, the toolboxes that will allow us to coexist with television broadcasters, and also allow the regulator to monitor the activities of secondary operation, secondary networks working in the area of the television band. So the secondary geolocation spectrum is the interface to the networks, but the reference geolocation spectrum database is the one that you see. If you go to the URL, there is a lot of explanation on how to use it for regulators. And also the SGLSD URL also can give you a whole lot of information. So the idea is to enable networks in at least the long mile networks to the middle mile networks to be able to access internet connectivity, and then plan the last mile using Wi-Fi. And at the same time, we have also a network planning tool, which is developed alongside the spectrum database, because of the fact that we have a lot of data from the spectrum database coming out, so we can support the rural network providers in network planning. So these services and technologies that are being developed now are being commercialized using the CSIR commercialization unit. And it has also received the NSF Technology Innovation Award in 2020. The affordable broadband deployment scenario looks like this. We have the spectrum database provided by the CSIR as a secondary geolocation spectrum database. And we have the rural SMMEs having the base station co-located with one of those service providers. And then the radio, the TV wide space radio connects, for example, a group of in the agri center or school, where we then design a Wi-Fi local area network, which looks like the one at the bottom here. So this is based on the studies that we have done as the CSIR on the availability of spectrum for enabling broadband in rural and township communities. So we also believe that deploying the network is one area, but making the networks generate a sustainable business is also something that's very important if we really want to get rural connectivity or digital inclusion to the rural. And so we believe that we must support the digital entrepreneur in rural areas, which has connection to sustainable business. It has to make a sustainable business, but it has also to become, a social entrepreneur, because you cannot be, just a business entrepreneur only. If you are in a rural setting in Africa, for example, you will have to be involved within the public sector, supporting the schools, connect to internet, and also providing the different services for government and businesses, local businesses. So we've seen that, for example, in the case of the SMMEs we have been interfacing, they are struggling with the municipalities they are working with. They try to support, and also struggling with the problems of insecurity and technology deployment, and also low skills in the basic infrastructure unavailability. So the private sector and the NGOs also would like to support in this, but it is not, there is always, this long-term aspect. So at the same time, we are working with the BITS Business School, trying to get, create the possibility of a sustainable business. How can we support this, fledgling, rural SMMEs using these technologies and deployments to benefit the society and benefit themselves and grow. So we have tried to identify what are the factors affecting the different, rural, in a rural context, the new businesses, the digital businesses. So you can see here, there are a number of factors that are affecting them. And there is also a co-creation environment that we would like to create together with the SMMEs. We have seen, for example, one of the SMMEs we are supporting, they are now connected with an innovation hub, trying to co-create and so that they can, increase the service localization and value-added service creation. So the network that we have deployed looks like that in the different rural areas, and the topology might change depending on the areas that are there. There are 4 areas that we have deployed this type of network. You can see that this is a heterogeneous network with television, white space, and Wi-Fi, and also the ISP service using fiber networks, where we get also the SGLSD service to the base station. So these are the type of networks that are working, and And also we are trying to provide, sustainable business models in the form of, seminars together with the University of Witwatersrand. So these 4 areas that we have deployed the networks. We are having a number of challenges, but also we have also seen that how this, the business models can improve using the available support that we can provide them, and the support from the municipalities, support from local investments that is coming in. So there is KwaZulu-Natal, Free State, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape. This is phase 1, but there is also a phase 2 that is coming, and it's going to be more covering also other areas in South Africa, and using the available spectrum that can be allocated to these SMMEs. Now it will be 14, but the idea is to go forward into more areas, more rural areas, connecting the digitally excluded communities to rural in the rural areas. So you can see the challenges. There the ISP service cost is one of those, and the creation of new value-added services is very important. And as I said, there is also the issue of vandalism and the billing costs that comes in there. The skills shortage also, and the network maintenance cost is also another issue. So we have tried to support them, on value-added service creation, because it's not only, the previous engagements, people just, deploy the networks and leave them. They can't create their own value-added service. They must be able to create. So a continuous innovation, in our opinion, will come when we connect these broadband networks and the SMMEs that who own them to technology innovation hubs, so that there is a continuous flow of innovative value-added service creation. This is what we are trying to support, and it also provides skills development and business model innovation together with that. So one of the things that we would like also to bring in is that we know, for example, there is a lot of talk about smart cities and how they optimize their resources and the like. We would like to bring in this with affordable connectivity to the smart rural communities. That we are trying to do together with the SMMEs by providing them the possibility of connecting the networks with smart sensors. This is very important because recently there was the International Telecommunications Union had a big conference where we presented this idea about, making sure that we have smart communities in rural areas. In the previous session, we were talking also similar problems, that unless we make sure that we have digital inclusion and give this opportunity to rural areas with the opportunity to grow their economies, with the opportunity to use green energy systems and also apply biodiversity restoration, then we are also we are only talking about half of the population of the world. Half of the other part is not getting involved. And how can we, make sure that this is happening is that by allowing rural communities and their networks get connected with sensors and collect the data and optimize the utilization of the resources. And there's also a whole lot of industry and business aspect that comes in, and there is a research paper that has come out with the CSIR and Ericsson, which you can look at. And with smart sensing and smart communities, there's a lot of opportunities for the digital entrepreneurs to catch up with the market of 90 billion and 20 billion in like that. And the discussion is this, and I would like not to take too much time on this. You can read it. And the most important for us is how do we reduce and reverse the adverse effects of COVID-19, because people need to have digital connectivity now because of the lockdowns that are happening. And we need to also support them, create the digital skills and the employment opportunities that can come in with this digital inclusion and sustainable business models. And there's also this, investing in women and youth in rural digital entrepreneurs, because we are focusing on them also now. And in conclusion, the crucial role of digital connectivity is being seen now with the COVID pandemic, and we need to support this with infrastructure and entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's why we are working with the networking ecosystem, the spectrum innovation that CSIR has developed, together with accelerated digital transformation for sustainability. And we are also now, scaling up this to make sure that we include 10 more rural and township digital SMMEs in the program. And we are also making sure that we connect these networks for smart sensors, for health, smart sensors for water, for agriculture. And there's a lot of mining, for example, in South Africa, which requires this type of smart sensing and networking to improve the existing business environment in rural areas. So we create the smart communities in Africa. And the restoration, biodiversity restoration, and the green networks that we are using. We're actually using the networks, use solar panels for powering the best CPEs, the customer premises equipment, and the access points, the Wi-Fi access points, so that we are actually showing the communities that we can be green, and biodiversity restoration also can be applied there. And we believe that this market potential is big, because 50% of the population globally is not connected with broadband and digitally excluded. So if we would like to see that the SMMEs that we are supporting in South Africa can grow and address also the problems in other African countries, support other African countries also to come up and connect and digitally include as many new communities as possible. Thank you very much. And I thank AFRICON for giving us this opportunity. And on behalf of the organizations that with Business School, CSIR, and the UNDP who funded this project, I would like to thank and end my talk. Thank you. So we would keep the question and answers maybe for the next, so that we can go directly to Bill's presentation, William's presentation.
Okay, all I need to be, I need to be enabled, and then I'll bring up the presentation.
Shall I bring it?
Here we go.
Up? Okay. So you can put it yourself, yeah.
Does everyone see it?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, let me go share a screen. I have host disabled participant screen sharing.
Aha. So maybe I should share it, the one that you sent me.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. The one.
Okay. Let me see if I can find it now. Matrix systems, yeah, here it is. Okay, share. Can you see it now?
No.
How about now?
Oh, there you go. Perfect, perfect. Okay, so again, thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll try to go through this very quickly. I presented a presentation as something that could be read later in detail and looked at references. Our focus here is, first of all, my name is Bill, and thank you again for this opportunity. We're a systems integrator and a manufacturer of communication systems, and we make TV white space equipment, and we're a recent graduate of the CSIR's TV white space database system, testing system, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
next slide, please. So, next slide, please.
Yes, one moment. I'm trying.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
Okay, so our focus in this presentation today is if I were working for you and you asked me to put together a modular solution to deliver broadband communications into the rural and township areas that you're speaking about, that's capable of supporting the services that you want, how would I go about doing it given today's technologies, things that are available? And what I've done is looked at, what we've done is come up with a system that uses 4 basic components. The advent of practical, low cost, high speed, space-based delivery systems, such as SpaceX. We're going to be talking about the best use of VHF and UHF TV band spectrum. Then there's a broad range of mid-size, small and mid-size LTE systems using the CBRS Citizen Band Radio Service, Band 48, which is beginning to be investigated and rolled out around the world. The FCC has just allowed it. And the practical cloud-based spectrum allocation systems, which CSIR TV whitespace system is, as far as I can see, the world's first in TV whitespace. Next one, please. So the basic model we're looking at has 4 layers. One of the problems that we see around the world in deploying these systems is the availability of large bandwidth gateway systems. And the LEOs, the SpaceX and the Kuiper system and a couple other systems that are going out there offer 200 to 300 megahertz downlink and 50 to 100 megahertz uplink. And we think these systems make ideal gateways for modular footprint systems. And what we envision shown on the top here is a 4-layer system, like I said, space-based, connected to the space-based low-cost hubs, connected to private LTE systems, low-cost private LTE systems, through TV whitespace feeder systems, and then out to CPE units, whether they be, these are low-cost CPE units again, and then those interconnected with Wi-Fi and IoT systems. And on the top and the bottom of the presentation, I have first showing the range. We're starting off with the LEO systems. They're 550 kilometers, and that's basically to provide latency. And on the bottom, we can see the speed and the latency track. So we're starting off, the problem that we're dealing with here is how do we take this 300 megabits full duplex signal, basically with low latency, and efficiently distribute it over a footprint area. So the footprint area we're talking about here, maybe 10, 20, 30 kilometers radius or range. And of course, this is controlled by topology and the availability of power. So basically, from a rural architecture point of view, the 4 points we're looking at is not using non-VSAT satellites, medium-long infrastructure with TV white space, 50 kilometers, using mini LTE and CBRS systems, and then Wi-Fi standard, very low-cost Wi-Fi for local distributions. And the key points offered by this paradigm here is truly wideband, truly broadband, 200 megabit support. And what we're after to meet, for example, the entrepreneurship requirements, growth requirements, is we need a system that can provide not only long range connectivity, but sustainable transfer rates over long distance and multiple locations and to different service categories. And of course, the ability to support diverse customer requirements. And again, what we're looking at is no invention here, except when it comes to the integration, there's always going to be some type of software required, and that could be done at the integrator provider level. But the equipment itself is pretty much off the shelf. Let's go to the next one, please. So it's just a summary of the space base. Starlink already has 1,600 satellites. They're talking about 1,735 been launched, 1,600 are online. And I think we're looking at another 100 this year. Service has already started in the US. They're shipping about 500 satellite terminals from data, from the press reports. Starlink is shipping about 500 terminals a week. They're upping production to close to 2,000. Service will be, I understand service will be started in Africa in several locations. Amazon's coming on. The EU is talking about several systems, and so is China. But the most important thing is the price per bit is falling rapidly. And within a year or two, we're looking at space-based systems essentially beginning to be put in the commodity category. Next one, please. On the TV white space, this is our experience with TV white space. We think we feel, and our experience is TV white space is primarily a long range feeder, medium range service. It has excellent, that's for terrestrial applications. It has excellent in-building capability and short range capability for high bandwidth at low power. Practically in an 8 megahertz bandwidth at a 50 kilometer range. We're experiencing 30 to 40 megabits per second in single link, and that that gives you 60 to 80 megabits capacity, full duplex. So the key to TV white space is having a spectrum allocation system like CSIR did. And this is really required. There is no other way to practically discover and use channels without such a system. And let's move on. And I think that's been addressed in the last presentation. Okay, the mini LTE CBRS systems are probably one of the biggest developments in providing services on a defined footprint level. And there's a number of vendors. I've just listed 5 here, and there's more vendors. And I haven't even listed the software vendors. But basically, what started here is the use of 150 megahertz band in the 3.5 to 3.7 megahertz range. And I understand a number of other countries are looking at this also. In Europe, Holland, Germany, and Sweden and UK are actively looking at these frequencies. These frequencies were originally in both the US and Europe, used for radar. Okay, and the key to these systems is the key to the database here is not only is really providing some type of environmental monitoring system that works together with the database to inform the different types of users of spectrum allocation and spectrum interference. And in the CBRS system, the next slides, please. There are three different levels of service tiers that are called, and they're very basic. One is tier 1 are all the current incumbent users of the band. There's priority users that are second one. Those are the public safety, utilities, broadcasters, etc. And then the third availability would be general users, such as rural users, such as users away from, in this case, in the US case, I bring up away from the coast. And this would, the third, all of them use the database, okay? But the third one would be very similar to what is done in the TV whitespace database. Next one, please.
Can you try to wrap up?
Yeah, I'm going to do it in a second. Okay, so this is basically, this chart on the top is the most important. This is the database structure. And basically what happens is a user calls into the database, and then from the environmental capability and the FCC database, spectrum is provided. Let's go to the next one. So what I'm going to do here, and I won't go through it too much, I just flip over a second apiece, is three different applications of the TV white space and long range applications. One is in South Africa. That's the next one, where we went over a 59 kilometer path, delivering internet to both to a clinic and a school. Another one in Philippines, where it was over water. In the US, where it was both the internet and an IoT capability. If you'd like, you can switch to the last slide, which is a summary. Oops, you don't, sorry, you don't have to go any further. I'll send you the new database. I'm sorry, I'll send you the new presentation, which had a summary, Okay, well, that includes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I give the floor to Clariska now. Would you like to come in and lead the next part of the program?
Sure. Thanks, Faseha, and thanks to William for those great presentations. Yes, I would now like to once again thank you to those participating online and to our expert team of panelists for participating in the special session 2 on sustainable broadband connectivity and digital entrepreneurship for Africa. We've received some insight on some of the ongoing projects and latest state of technologies from Dr. Faseha and Mr. Brown. And we would now like to move forward into our panel discussion, We have an expert list of panelists who we're very grateful for joining us today. And they did get introductions done earlier in this session. What I will do is just go through what the topics of discussion are. There's about 7 leading or guiding questions that we will walk through. And it's a very open discussion. Feel free to come in with your viewpoints and perspectives. And we will be led and guided by our team of panelists, and we will take some questions right at the end and final closing discussions right at the end of the session. So the topics that we would be going through, we will talk about what are the obstacles for digital inclusion in rural communities, and then discuss some of the technologies and types of networks that are available to enable sustainable and affordable rural broadband connectivity. Very important is discussing the sustainability, well, the business sustainability of our rural digital entrepreneurs. So we will talk about sustainable business models and community engagement for co-creation and development of value-added services. We will also talk about with the emerging 5 and 6G wireless technologies, is there hope of broadband everywhere? And then we would discuss some of the regulatory and policy formulation that we would require to accelerate sustainable digital connectivity. And then talk a bit about with our RDEs, and is there a possibility for them to have access into new markets by partnering with some of our innovation and techno hubs that are all around Africa and coming up very fast. And then we will conclude with some long-term lessons and best practices for TV white space and affordable broadband. So I'm going to go into the session now, and it will be co-chaired with Dr. Seha. And I'll start off with the first question, talking about what are the obstacles for digital inclusion in our rural communities. And just as some leading into this discussion, you know, in recent reports, the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, in 2017, again indicated that Africa is still at the tail end of ICT usage, with only 20% of our population having access to the internet. And many believe that these trends will not improve if we don't do something radically now. And some of the obstacles included mobile network operators struggling to find economic viability in low income markets and in areas that are sparsely populated, simply because of the high infrastructure costs. And over and above, you know, the access to coverage within these areas, it's the affordability. And again, some staggering information from ITU saying that in developed countries, a broadband package cost is usually 1.7% of average income, compared to a staggering 64% of average income in countries and continents like Africa. So with that type of introduction, let's talk a bit more about what are the obstacles for digital inclusion in rural communities. And I think to kick off the discussion, maybe I'll call upon Mr. Nati Mbela for his perspectives on the topic and to kick off the panel discussion. Nati, do you want to get us going?
Yeah, no, thank Clariska. But maybe first, before I respond to your question, let me just comment on Dr. Fisa's paper, which in my view has been one of the most incredible research on this topic, but also commend UNDP for raising their hand to support CSIR on the work that has been ongoing for the past 10 years, because we often underestimate, you know, the time required to convert a research paper into implementation. I think the partnership of CSIR and UNDP has really defined new standard. You know, we've seen some of the amazing research end up being on shelf, but the TVY space that UNDP has supported, it's really showing new paths in terms of getting research being implemented and already changing life. EdNotes is one of the beneficiaries of this program. So I know exactly what this has done for our business. But just maybe to go back to your question, I mean, I think the primary challenge, in my opinion, which is really increasing digital divide in rural areas, is a lack of a blueprint. And I'm encouraged today because on this panel also joined by CEO of Moses Gondana Institution, CEO Tandega. Why I'm mentioning her, because here in KwaZulu-Natal, MKI has given the province a blueprint when it comes to digital transformation. And through the work that they've done, they've managed to identify specific obstacles, and they then created certain priorities. And one of those, the first priority on their work is the connectivity, which of course is what is prohibiting some of this digital inclusion, because without connectivity, you cannot participate on any digital economy. So here in KZN, we have a blueprint, a guideline, which is spearheaded by Utandega, that actually give us a clear path that we need to follow up until 2025. So in most rural part of South Africa, such plan do not exist. So for me, I feel like that is the primary obstacle where we are trying to address a challenge, which in quite, most of the time we find that nobody knows more about these challenges. But with what the MKI has done, we know exactly what are these challenges, and they even managed to rate some of the priorities in trying to tackle these challenges. So I will really encourage any community that we should address these challenges with digital inclusion, at least to have a plan, a long-term plan, but then break it down into priorities, make sure you rate them. So let me just stop there. I wish to come back later, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you for that kind of insight. Since you mentioned Tandeka, would you like to come in and give us some more insight into what Nati has told us about?
I don't think Tandeka is in. I don't see her.
Okay. All right. Would any of the panelists like to come in and discuss some of the other obstacles for digital inclusion in rural communities? Like I mentioned earlier, affordability of infrastructure has been an issue for a very long time. And there's many other obstacles that need to be cleared for us to attain equitable access. So any panelists, maybe Bill, would you like to air your thoughts? Bill, are you still with us?
Maybe we can give it to Fumilila.
Yes, please. I am here. Thank you for this opportunity. I think being an internet service provider in the rural communities, as I've mentioned, that we have a wireless network in Mpumalanga, in Eastern Cape, and in KZN. One of our challenges is having access to reliable electricity, it's often one of our biggest challenges in informal settlements, because we find that, some of these households, as shocking as it is, have no access to electricity. And I think this digital divide that there is, some or most of our customers or clients that benefit from our internet, we find that they actually have no optimal skills and understanding of how to use, computers and other digital devices to the maximum potential or capability, rather. So these are some of the challenges that we come across as an internet service providers in specifically these areas. And I think what is fundamental, perhaps, is also that we need to start, educating the beneficiaries in rural communities of how they can best utilize, these smart devices to the best of their potential. I think from our side, that has been one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you very much, Pumi. I think that's definitely some great insight. While there's larger issues at play, something like access to reliable electricity is one of the key issues across many of our African countries. Okay, and with that being said, if there's no other comments on the obstacles, we can move into question 2. I think Prof. Njumo, would you like to come in with the last few comments on the first question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And again, great pleasure to be here with everyone. So I think the previous comments were very pertinent. I had wanted to comment on skills, but my colleague commented on that. So I'm coming from the university sector, so perhaps that's one thing we focus. So we have seen some evidence that's been published around this area of skills, not just here in South Africa, but across the continent, that there are challenges around the skills, not just of the customers, but also of some of the companies as well. So I'm thinking right now of one piece of research which shows that whilst there's very good technical skills, for example, among SMMEs and providers in this area, the ones that are emerging, there's less skill or emphasis of those companies in terms of acquiring managerial, business-oriented type of skills. And the key point here is that you need to have both. So I think this is a very good platform which is helping to capacitate SMMEs in this area. And perhaps just one final comment is that this is something that needs to be looked at in terms of various actors. So it's not enough to just look at the SMMEs or even to look at the customers or potential customers or beneficiaries. It needs a holistic approach that takes into account policy issues, policy environment, infrastructure issues, and again, all these were touched on by some of the previous comments. So thanks again, and I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Njumo. I would like to add something here. I think what Phumilile said about skills is very important. I remember we had a discussion in the CSIR about, we bring in technology to rural areas, and we say, okay, now we are skilling the SMMEs, and the SMMEs are well aware of the technology now. They can use it and like that. But what about the community, the people in the community? the users. Unless you have the digital skills, you cannot use those services. We are trying to create new services, value-added services around that, but the users are not proficient to utilize it. So that's a very important also aspect that we need to scale and rescale the communities and provide that. So my view is that maybe that this connection between the SMMEs and the techno hubs, the local techno hubs, is very important. And then they can have, a weekly seminar for the population, for the communities, to come in and test some of the technologies and get also somebody talk about how to utilize the technologies and become proficient, so that there will be a take up of the services that these SMMEs are providing. Because otherwise, what will happen is that there might come some kind of fake news, like the one that destroyed the 5G networks. There was a lot of fake news that came in, and they said 5G is connected with the COVID, and people went out, destroyed the stations. So this type of things can be avoided if we can engage the communities, co-create those services. Maybe they come with the challenges that they are having, so that it might be also a good thing for the SMMEs to realize, oh, this is the type of service I would like to create for this community. So that is that type of an innovation environment is very important to create the services and the skills, to develop the skills of the users also. Thank you.
Indeed, very good points, Faseha. In fact, UNDP ran a rapid needs assessment in one of our districts in South Africa not too long ago. And certainly the need for skills development came up. And it even went beyond saying, basic skill development, but also how can we encourage communities to take up, activities within the economy. So starting up businesses online or taking small businesses online. And there was certainly this need and desire to embark on advanced skills development and not just, access to use the internet or to use Facebook and YouTube, but it was encouraging to see many young people saying they wanted to know about e-commerce and e-payments. So definitely skills is one of those obstacles that we need to find ways of overcoming. All right, and with that being said, thank you for those insights. We can now move into question 2, and question 2 is about, we just said there's so many obstacles, but then let's talk about the technology side, and is there a right mix? Is there that perfect mix of cellular and heterogeneous networks for sustainable and affordable rural connectivity? And, I go back to ITU and they issued a solutions guide, and it listed connectivity options for our last mile. And they range from, wireless, which includes 2G to 5G cellular, fixed wireless access, Wi-Fi, satellite, and including wired access, fiber and so on. And it's very often that our internet service providers are using a mix of one and more of these fixed wired and wired technologies to enable internet globally. And interestingly enough, many service providers are also embarking on experimental and emerging technologies, like some of which we discussed today and will be discussed across this conference. And also interesting as further background to this discussion is, fiber optic cables, while they provide great high-speed data connectivity, it has limited reach. It's only within populations, within urban areas, and normally not providing access to remote regions. And it says that globally, there's only about 2 billion people that reside within at least 10 kilometers of high fiber optic cables. And even if we look at cellular connectivity, although 90% of the world's population lives within coverage regions, there's still 10% of the global population without mobile broadband coverage, particularly again in remote and rural parts of Africa, Asia, and so on. And when we consider now the various technologies that are available to enable sustainable connectivity in rural areas, there's so many aspects to consider. It could be the socio-economic status of the region, the geographic and environmental factors, which include population density, geographic terrain, electrical availability, which so many of our speakers just alluded to now, and that being a challenge in itself. So, it's important for us to look at what is available and what combination of these technologies can allow for affordable connectivity. And while we discuss these various options, we must also maybe give thought to the use of green technologies, solar powered infrastructure, the use of recyclable and reused materials, as well as reducing the toxicity of construction materials, for example. And when we talk about business sustainability, let's also focus on environmental sustainability. Dr. Paseha mentioned many times about green networks and biodiversity restoration. So how can we bring in this angle when we talk about the various technologies that are available to us? And with that being said, I'll hand over now to the panel to discuss some of their thoughts on this topic of, is there that right mix? Is there that perfect mix of cellular and heterogeneous networks for sustainable and affordable rural connectivity? And then if there's any volunteers, before I single out individuals, you can come in and let's hear from you what your views on the technologies that we could employ.
Clariska, let me come in.
Go ahead, Naki.
Because I know I'm your primary suspect to be singing out. Yeah. Look, I'm really encouraged by the comments from other speakers. When it comes to this issue of, a right mix, I think in South Africa, we are close to test that through the wireless open access network. Perhaps maybe discussion if it will be successful or not, that will be a discussion for another day. But I'm encouraged for the fact that we've traveled this far to even put it being gazetted. Unfortunately, it's also been held by the whole code challenges. But in my view, when you look at the wireless open access network, intention, you can see that what ICASA is trying to encourage, how can we, as players within the telecommunications sector, come together to address one goal, which is gaps in the rural areas. So, like in our case, in our network, EDNOs participate almost on all the miles. So we have certain sites that, the backwall is provided by one of the telecoms, largest telecom in South Africa. And when we started that project, the reason why we selected that particular telecom provider, they had infrastructure, but their focus was not on reaching the last mile. Their infrastructure in that area was primarily targeting large farming communities. But we, on the other hand, our interest was to reach farm workers. So through engaging with them, they are now supplying us with a incredible backwall of 100 meg line for us to then distribute our connectivity to farm workers. So I believe what really I've been observing, in South Africa, slowly but surely we are getting to a point of understanding that whether you're a small ISP or established telecommunication company, there's now a gap for these two to interact. And through our discussion, you'll be amazed that challenges that we as smaller ISPs are facing, similar challenges that are actually being faced by a large telecoms company. So I can't wait to really monitor that project and see after a year what will come out of this. But I feel like there is a huge room for all technologies to work together. And I can't wait to see E1 actually getting a chance even to being implemented, because it is a practical example of how we as a country can come together to address the issue of connectivity in rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nasi, and thanks for being the first to go ahead. Appreciate that. Anyone else from our team of panelists?
I would wish that William comes in, because I would like to add another question on that one, because he is talking about satellite backhaul and then connecting to an LTE and then connect to TV white spaces and then LTE and then Wi-Fi. So is that not a very expensive solution, in my opinion? Whether that could be possible to implement, as it is a difficult situation, because I don't think that is the right mix. But I would like to hear what he has to say. What is the price per performance figures that he has, so we can see if it is a rural broadband network solution.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I look at the problem as the problem is very complex, and it's overwhelming to me, absolutely, to tell you the truth. The task you folks have is monumental, okay? But I think you'll achieve it in a certain percentage. But I look at this distribution as a distribution of resources, an economic distribution system. We're starting off with, and this may sound very simple, but we all try to make some type of model within our mind to understand highly complex systems. So we're distributing water. We have a big pipe and we have to distribute over a long range, okay? So one of the problems I see from my experience is just getting access to connectivity access. And you're right about fiber. Fiber stops where it's becomes non-economic to go any further, and that's true globally. Period. Okay, and fiber has a life. Fiber cracks. Fiber has, the earth moves. Things happen. Connectivity goes away. Okay, so one of the problems is how do we get a big bucket of data? Okay. Secondly, how do I distribute it efficiently? Okay, is in a pipe as big as possible given the spectrum. And one of the economic resource allocation that we're doing, economic constraints, is how to use spectrum efficiently. Okay. So TV white space is what's available right now to do physically, to do long range. Long range is 10 kilometers and more to us at full duplex rates of 50 megabits and above. And then there's a problem of distributing it. TV white space, in our opinion, is not the technology to use for point to multipoint capability. Well, let me back off. TV white space as point to multipoint is now implemented is not the right way of doing it. And there's a limited amount of bits per hertz that you can achieve within the bandwidth, the 8 megahertz bandwidth. And yes, there's bonding and everything, but basically you're still working with 8 megahertz. And then
there is an opportunity to utilize, 2 consecutive bands, and you can get 16 megahertz. Your spectrum is completely available, because in rural areas, what we have seen is that there is enough spectrum to do, concatenate 2 bands together and then get more bandwidth.
yeah,
And that's possible with the technology that we have now. But the device manufacturers are the ones that are, holding it now as it is.
right. So the deal is this: we need to have large numbers of equipment manufactured to bring the price down. Okay, and the only arena that's being done now in the point to multipoint is the LTE region. Okay, so it's one of reality. How do we deal with, how do we best use the equipment that we have now, the commodity level equipment, to deliver bandwidth? So is the 3.7 megahertz that we talk about here, and I just picked on it, as an example, is that the ideal distribution spectrum for rural, within 10 kilometers? It's probably not. I would like to see something more in the 900, close to gigahertz region, and something a little bit lower. But that spectrum is not available. So the bottom line for me, from a manufacturer, where to put investment dollars, is to where are there large applications? And large means in this area, hundreds of thousands of units. And if I put my money into that area, can I produce something of high value? So we want the price value ratio very large. So rather than go on, the space-based system will expand to provide gigahertz downlink. Gigahertz downlink from space are now commonplace on satellites, okay? And in the bands that we're looking at. So we expect that to happen. So the problem of providing large bandwidth over a large area will probably be solved within the next 5 to 10 years, 5 years, even sooner. TV white space, gigahertz of bandwidth there if used properly. And the point to multipoint, it may be LTE at different frequencies. It may even be going down into TV white space, as some companies have done. So it's a difficult problem. We have to use the equipment that we have at hand. You have to do a lot of testing. And that's basically my 2 cents on this. I hear silence.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a tough problem.
I would like to ask William actually a question again, because where out of the US, is there anywhere that CBRS is being used?
Canada, I think, will be the next one. The UK is looking at it very seriously from what I hear. And that's basically what I'm getting from open literature, okay?
Okay.
But here's the thing, we have a number of, I listed just 5 or 6 companies that are doing CBRS equipment, okay? And there are some companies that are totally, there are a number of new companies that are totally dedicated to it. So could it be a temporary trend? All spectrum is good spectrum, okay? So I expect other countries, China is going into it in a big way, okay? One way or the other. I can't definitively answer your question except from what I just said.
Yes, I think there is, you know, from myself when I see it, you know, TV white spaces has been, you know, for over 20 years now, you know, in the technology development, and the devices we see are the same. They haven't evolved or innovated. So that is one of the problems that we have. And secondly, the satellite and LTE, and then TV white space, and then LTE, and then Wi-Fi solution is, I don't know if someone has used it in Africa, but I don't know. But I think the one that we have now is, you know, fiber, and then TV white space, and then Wi-Fi is a simple and also easy to manage network. So what do you say when you compare it?
So what I'm thinking of is large, okay, so TV white space, let's start from the other end. The 2.4 to 5.8, okay, the limiting factor there is the noise floor, okay? The limiting factor in all these are noise floor, but it's limited power, it does work, we've done it in a number of applications. The cell solution offers larger footprints because there's more power, and it offers larger bandwidths, okay, because you have bandwidths of up to 20 megabits per second, and you're talking about up and down rates of 20 to 30 megabits also. So in the LTE systems will, as I said, they're lower cost, they'll be driven down to lower cost. The CPE systems are within a few $100s, okay, in quantity, okay, that make them very attractive. And like I'm not looking to say that the paradigm that we presented is 100% solution. It's not. Okay, if we make a pie chart, you know, it's probably a 30% solution. It will have, you know, it handles 30 to 40%, maybe 30%. Okay, the Wi-Fi solution is maybe a 10, and I'm talking globally, a 10-15% solution. So it's, as was said before, it's a mix of solutions. And what we're presenting here is a concept. And let me say one last thing on TV white space. We're investing heavily in time and dollars in TV white space. And this is our opinion. We may be proven wrong, okay? But we think there's a feeder market, in that that if we stay focused on this market, you know, the 10 to 50 kilometer market will provide a economic alternative to microwave. And again, it does perform very well in areas that microwave doesn't. Its all weather capability has proven itself out in some number of areas. So TV white space, I think, is evolving like anything else. And the 20 years of developing TV white space turns out to be the normal gestation time for a number of technologies, especially TV. Wi-Fi was about 20 years. Okay, as you know, it was first offered in the 1980s and 1990s and came to a high point, well, started in 2010. So I think there's a lot of life for TV white space.
Yeah, I think let us maybe go forward, but I would advise you to come and invest in South Africa and maybe start a manufacturing you know, hub there, because TV white space is going to grow, And the plan that we have in the project with UNDP is that we would like to address thousands of rural communities using the TV white space and Wi-Fi combination network. So if you really think that you want to invest and get, then it's one of the ways is to invest in South Africa and get the industry flowing.
Well, let me do 2 comments, and I won't monopolize this. We are very interested in doing that. Okay, it's fine. It's always finding the right partner. And then secondly, we're just starting Latin America has been pretty slow in Central America. In fact, this week we're starting a proof of concept down in Panama, where it's all rural. It's going to schools and clinics. And the big challenge there is it's in jungle. It's everything's forested. And if the goal is to get 5 to 10 kilometers. So it's, you can't do that with Wi-Fi. You simply can't do it. So we're looking at even lower power TV white space and channel reuse to go within a village or a rural area. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again. No,
We need
thank
to
you
go
very
to
much. Very
the
much.
next talk. Okay, Clariska, you can take over now.
Okay, great. So Fasea, I'm going to hand over to you to take us through the next 3 questions.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think the next question is how do we sustain business models? It is for Mujumo, I think, to comment on as a sad question. Mujumo, are you there?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Sarah and Clariska. Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think it's an empirical question. It's not something that is to be determined through academic research. It's something that the companies that are involved in this space have to figure out in conjunction with their partners, customers, and so on. But just some broad thoughts are that if we look at sustainable business models, broadly speaking, then they have to be commercially sustainable. They have to be environmentally sustainable, and they have to be societally sustainable. Sometimes people call that the triple bottom line, or the 3 Ps, people, planet, profit. It has to touch all of those aspects. It also has to be consistent with the technological capabilities. And as we were having the previous discussion prior to this question, I was thinking about this issue of the heterogeneous networks versus cellular networks. There's an inglorious history of satellite networks, but this is 10, 20 years ago. Teledesic, Iridium, Globalstar, Skybridge. I'm wondering why Starlink will be different. Technological developments will certainly facilitate more commercial sustainability, but I'm still not sure I've seen convincing business case or even business models around that. Last comment on this one is there's an ITU document that was put together last year. It's on last mile internet connectivity solutions. And they look at a plethora of technologies, all the way from Wi-Fi, satellite, fiber, TV white spaces, and so on. And the main takeaway for me looking at that report was that it's it very much depends on what the context is, what the particular scenario is, what the constraints are. There isn't a one size fits all, technologically or business model wise either. But I'll be interested to see what the SMMAs that are working in this space think. So I am an observer, I study this, but they are actually in the trenches doing this. Thank you.
Thanks, Prafam Jumo. Anyone else on the floor would like to comment on the sustainable business model?
Oh yeah, no, thanks, Clariska, and I like the the challenge that was posed by Professor Joe, because really it all boiled down to the business. You know, we often view ourselves as SMEs, and maybe that terminology somehow dilutes the core of our existence as a business, is to make profit. But in pursuing profit, I feel like if you do that without considering the issue of environment, the issue of community, you will not be sustainable in that arena. So from our side as EdNotes, what we value the most is community engagement, because these communities, they are previously underserved by whether telecoms company, or they are being served by expensive products or services. So by doing a proper community engagement, that on its own, we are able to gather and build relationship with those communities. You gather available information which you can use when you put the prices, but also just to understand needs on the ground. You know, our network, one of our network is actually located in a deeply rural area where 90% of the whole municipality is rural, and only 10% is urban. What we've discovered, as much as the community embrace the connectivity, being connected online, but we started to approach content producers, because the content is everything when it comes to connectivity. How the content is being delivered to those communities, and in which language is being delivered to those communities. So in pursuing sustainability, we took that upon ourselves to go out and partner with relevant content producers that will deliver the content that is relevant to these particular communities. Because the more they stay on our network, the better our business becomes sustainable, but also bring a relevant content which educates that community, but also allow the community to bring its own content. When you look at how YouTube is making money, it's through people's hosting their content online. But also, we must also think of our network, the role that we can play to bring content from these communities, so that the longer they stay on a network, the better for our businesses. So now when you look at value-added services, that for us is what we, you know, it may sound as if we are moving from our core business, but our core is to keep our customer happy, keep them informed, and make sure that in doing so, they do it in a safe environment. So part of our campaigns that we normally run just for our subscribers, just to educate them about the issue of how to use internet. I often say, a knife can do two things. If you give a knife to a surgeon, that knife can save a life, but same knife, when it's being given to a thief, it can end life. So if our network are landing in wrong hands, of course, we don't have full control of that. However, there are systems in place that protect like young children, but it's critical to, when we even approach our customers, we make them being aware the issue of parental control, how to set up the routes at the last mile access so that it filters some of the dangerous content for their children. So all this work is going extra mile beyond providing internet. We now offer value-added services. In that way, if your business remains relevant in the community where it operates, surely it will be sustainable. Yeah, that will be my input on this question.
Thank you, Nati. It's a very important message that you gave us now, and you are actually on the spot on this, and I would like to commend you also that you already started working with a local innovation hub, and you already get students come and do competition on developing the services and applications, and that is a very important intervention in my opinion, and also will give you back some ideas on how to create a new value-added services that will benefit the community. So I think that is a very important engagement that you are doing, apart from rolling out the network and giving the internet services to the communities. So this is a type of rural digital entrepreneurs that can grow and become also one of those industries in the future, which will propel South Africa, in my opinion. And I wish you all that for that. I think we are running out of time, a whole lot, only 12 minutes left. So just to go to the next questions, I was wondering, question number 4. I think there is a number of activities that has come in this. I don't know, Mujumo or someone can comment, otherwise I can give some comment. Maybe Joyce can comment because she's working also on a 5G test bed at UCT. Do you think there is a broadband everywhere possibility with 5G? If you are there, Joyce.
Hi, Fisaha. I'm actually just about to go start the.
But otherwise, I can try to give some comments on this.
Hi, Fisaha. I'm actually just about to leave to go and start the keynote session. So, unfortunately,
okay. So we will complete this ourselves. Then.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us anyway.
Thank you.
So. What happened was when 5G was being standardized, we from the ITU side, there was a whole lot of discussion from the emerging economies that it's not taking the use cases of emerging economies. So it was more designed for the industry and the developed nations. So we from the CSIR side wrote some articles about there are 3 pillars for 5G, and we want to have a 4th pillar, which is going to address the use cases of 5G, also address rural and